Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सदा भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की, भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, नमाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की, अंतर्विमार्गू धाम की, वृंदावन धाम की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, समावेद भक्त वृंद की जय, गौ प्रेमानंदे, all good to assemble duties, all good to assemble duties, all good to assemble duties, all good to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Prabhu, there is a third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, if you can find, because I couldn't find here. So, today is a very, very important day so far as New York is concerned, because today is 9/11, where World Trade Center is, that site was bombarded many years back. And that's why you see that devotees may have gone for the ceremony. Early morning, all the dignitaries and everybody will come, try to honor that particular event. So, as far as Sankirtan is concerned, this is the best time to go and preach, because we have to establish a peace once more in New York City. And that is why you see everyone is busy this morning. So let's start without further delay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayeta Nastapraeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, text number 14. And the verse goes like this. Kiyan bhoyam kshapito rubharo. Can you repeat? Kiyan bhuyoyam kshapito Yadrona Bhishmarjuna Bhimamule Yadrona Bhishmarjuna Bhimamule Astadashakshoni Komadamshe Astadashaksho hiniko madanshe Raste balam durvisham yadunam Raste balam durvisham yadunam. Anybody would like to try? Kiyan bhuyoyam kshapito rubaro Yadrona Bhishmarjuna Bhimamule Astadashaksho hiniko madanshe Raste balam durvishaham yadunam. Kiyan bhoyam kshapito rubaro Yadrona Bhishmarjuna Bhimamule Astadashaksho hiniko madanshe Raste balam durvishaham yadunam. Kiyan bhoyam kshapito rubaro Yadrona Bhishmarjuna Bhimamule Astadashaksho hiniko madanshe Raste balam durvishaham yadunam. You guys were perfect. Very nice. This is difficult, but you did it. Everyone got 100 out of 100. So let's see the word-to-word translation of this particular verse. Kiyan means what is this? Bhuva, of the earth. I am this. Kshapita, abated. Uru means very great. Bharaha, burden. Yat, which. Drona, Dronacharya. Bhishma, Bhishma Pitama. Arjuna, Arjuna. Bhima, Bhima. Mulehi, with the help. Astadasha, 18. Akshohenika, phalanxes of military strength. Mat Anshaya, with my descendants. Aste, are still there. Balam, great strength. Durvishaham, unbearable. Yadunam, of the Yadu dynasty. So that was the word-to-word translation, which makes the particular verse, which is little intricate, but it gives you very simple meaning out of it. When you break it down into so many words and try to learn word by word, that's the way Srila Prabhupada is teaching. So translation, when we put those words together, it is, after the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of earth's great burden, 18 Akshonis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. So you got it, or you want me to repeat it? It's okay, right? It's self-explanatory. So it says that after the end of battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of earth's great burden, 18 auctionees, had now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. It is a wrong theory that due to an increase in population, the world becomes overburdened and therefore there are wars and other annihilating processes. Now we just talked about 9/11. I myself used to work on that building. We had two buildings. It's just right now it's just one building that did it. But it used to be twin towers. Means 100-story, two of them together. And you can put the whole New York City there. Because underneath that, there was so much rooms, different levels, about 6 levels, parking and shopping and all that, you know. So it was like a separate city within New York City. And they bombarded and thousands were killed. Here, Prabhupada, when he was not there, right? He left a long time back. But he's creating a picture what really happens in human population. So here it says, it's a wrong theory that due to an increase in population, the world becomes overburdened and therefore there are wars and other annihilating processes. So bombarding buildings and killing thousands of people is also a kind of annihilating process. The earth is never overburdened. The heaviest mountains and oceans on the face of the earth hold more living entities than there are human beings, and they are not overburdened. If its census were taken of all the living beings on the surface of the earth, certainly it would be found that number of humans is not even 5% of the total number of living beings. If the birth rate of human being is increasing, then the birth rate of other living beings is also increasing proportionally. So, Prabhupada is talking about a proportion. There are, now the reason I'm going even while we are reading is because I was told here that we have to give 15 minutes for the questions and answers. And you may miss important questions while asking question in last 15 minutes. Instead of that, I'm giving you answers of the questions that you may have or you may not have or you may miss as a question. So there are 4 kinds of living entities. One are born from perspiration. You see here, we perspire. And that's where sometimes we are itching. Why? Because it creates life in your underarms. And that's why it's itching. That is the life. If you put a microscope and if you really want to see what's happening there, it's possible to see visually that a lot of insects, invisible insects, are created by perspiration. And they are in multiple, millions of them in one body, you know. So that's what Prabhupada is trying to say. That compared to other kind of species, the human beings are limited, right? Only 5% out of 100%. The second kind is seeds. If there is a mango seed, it comes out as a mango tree, right? So there are millions and millions of trees around us. That's also life, right? So compared to the trees and plants, fruits and flowers, you know, we are nothing compared to that. That's what Prabhupada is trying to say. And the third thing is birds and beasts. So many kind of birds are there, right? Can you count them? Beasts, if you go to the jungle, or not only wild animals, but even in regular life, the dogs and cats and all that, there are so many. Compared to that, we are nothing. And the fourth one is that birth rate of lower animals like beasts, equities. Equities is one that they grow in the water, the fish, etc. That's the fourth kind. And there are 400 kinds of fish. When we say it's not just one kind of fish. If you go to fish market, they say, what kind of fish you want? Flounder, flute, you want the bluefish, they will ask you all kind of codfish. So we don't know, but there are 400 kind of fish they sell. So just imagine that human beings are nothing compared. That's what Prabhupada is saying, that we are only 5%. The birth rate of lower animals like beasts, equities, birds, etc. is far greater than the human beings. There is an adequate arrangement for food for all the living beings all over the earth by the order of the Supreme Lord. And He can arrange more and more if there is actually a disproportionate increase of living beings. So it's like kind of demand and supply. We have to study and go to the university and learn all these subjects, right? Demand and supply. But God, He knows everything. So if He gives one birth to a child, He knows that this child needs to be maintained. So He is providing at the same time. So this is the beauty of Krishna. Therefore, there is no question of an increase in population causing a burden. The earth became overburdened due to dharmaglani, or irregular discharge of the Lord's desire. The Lord appeared on the earth to curb the increase in miscreants and not the increase in population as wrongly. Curb the increase in miscreants and not the increase in population as the wrongly put forward by mundane economists. When Lord Krishna appeared, there had been a sufficient increase in miscreants who had violated the desire of the Lord. The material creation is meant for fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and His desire is that conditioned souls who are unfit to enter into kingdom of God have a chance to improve their conditions for entering. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance to the conditioned souls to enter the kingdom of God, and there is an adequate arrangement for their maintenance by the nature of the Lord. So, if you see, for example, across our building also, the new building came up, but before that there was the old building which is still there, and with this architectural advance concept of the air rights. Air rights means you can keep this building as it is, and you can build a 100-story building on top of it. All you have to do is sell your air rights. That okay, we have 6-story building right now, 305 Skimmonon Street. We don't want to go up higher. If there is a room, you can build, but give us $5 million. So you can sell the air light, and the people will come and put 4 columns on a 4 direction, and they will build 100-story building on that, no problem. You sold your air rights. So the thing is that those who are unfit to enter into kingdoms of God have a chance to improve the condition of entering. So across the street, they have that building which they sold that air rights and make a building on top of it. You can see. So that particular place used to be, let's say if someone is drinking too much, someone is smoking too much, someone is on drugs, someone is a criminal. So these kind of people, they bring it to that building, and they have the trainees. They talk to them. And they say, Mister, why you have to drink? What's wrong? Well, my parents, okay, we'll contact your parents. So they find out and they go to the roots of it and try to make up the relationship with the parents, and then everything is okay, that kind of thing. So this place is actually like that. Material world is like that. We are not actually qualified to be with Krishna. So there should be some way to improve us. So this is a place, material world, where they bring people like us and they treat us. If somebody is drinking too much, over there in that building, they help that instead of drinking this, you better drink this, we will provide you. The city will spend money for you, but you try our drink and see how healthy you feel. So the person will give up drinking, that kind of thing. The smoking, drinking, any bad habits, this, that, is taken care in that particular place. So similarly, the material place is like that. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance to conditioned souls to enter the kingdom of God, and there is an adequate arrangement for their maintenance by the nature of the Lord. Just like that place, the city put a lot of money in that. At least one person they put, like $500,000 every year to improve the person, because one person is too much for a city. You have to save their life. Sometimes those who really, we used to have many years back a personality which is still there, I think, son of Sam. Son of Sam, what he used to do, every evening he used to take a walk and used to keep a gun in his pocket. And he used to hate, like a couple loving in a public place. So as soon as he see a boy and girl, he will just shoot them. And for days and days and years, nobody knew who is doing that. Because this guy was walking in his, like a regular dress, and nobody knows he has a gun, and he will shoot. And right here also in Brooklyn and certain areas, especially Jewish area, he used to go and kill a lot of people. And then someday what happened that before he came out, he put his gun in a car. He just left it on next to the driver's seat. And then he went to see whether there is any place where, he can find people. So one old lady was walking by the car and he saw the gun there. And he said, maybe that guy is here. So she called 911 and the cops, they came secretly. And then that guy, he came to this car and took the gun and went out, and right away they catch him. But the government was spending millions and millions of dollars for years and years and years. I'm talking about 1970s, and right now it is 2021, right? Millions of dollars are spent just to improve that particular guy. And every day they talk to him that there is nothing wrong in human relationship. God created a boy and a girl, and they have to, marry and have, all that. But why? But there are places like this. So material world is like that. Therefore, although there may be a great increase in population on the surface of the earth, if the people are exactly in line with God consciousness, are not miscreants, such a burden on earth is source of pleasure for her. There are two kinds of burdens. There is a burden of the beast and the burden of love. The burden of beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is source of pleasure. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti describes the burden of love very practically. He says that the burden of husband on the young wife, and the burden of child on the lap of a mother, and the burden of wealth on a businessman, also actually burden from the viewpoint of heaviness, are sources of pleasure, and in the absence of such burdensome objects, one may feel the burden of separation, which is heavier to bear than the actual burden of love. When Lord Krishna referred to the burden of the Yadu dynasty on the earth, he referred to something different than the burden of the beast. So what it is that, let's say a child, right? Krishna was a child. They call it a Bal Gopal. There is a cradle here, little swing. We put him in the cradle and then everybody is swinging. That is called Zulan. So we do that before Janmashtami 10 days, right? And even during the Janmashtami, we are celebrating that swing festival, right? Now Krishna, as a baby boy, is heavy, and Mother Yashoda's lap is, she feels that heaviness. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that's not the heaviness. Don't consider as a burden. Nanda Baba used to take him on his shoulders, right? But that's not a burden. So what it is, that's why there are two kinds of burdens. One is which is really a burden, and one is a burden of love. So when we are talking about the human beings, they are not actually burden. They are like burden of love. So when Lord Krishna referred to the burden of Yadu dynasty on this earth, he referred to something different than the burden of beasts. The large numbers of family members born of Lord Krishna counted to some millions and were certainly a great increase in the population of the earth. But because all of them were expansion of the Lord himself by his transcendental plenary expansion. So again, one thing we have to see, that Krishna, just in one incident like Narkasur and all that, who captured 16,108 young girls, right? And now, since they were kidnapped, all of them, no one will marry. Because if she wants to marry, they say, oh, you were kidnapped by Narkasur, why should we marry you, right? So those 16,108 young girls desired to marry Krishna when Narkasur was killed. So Krishna had those wives, and this is just one incident. There may be more. So the thing is that in those days, it was not unusual for a Kshatriya or for king or kingly person to marry more than one wife. So the thing is that Krishna gave them 10 sons to every one of them. So 16,108 multiplied by 10, right? So his family was so big. Now those children get married, they bring the bride home, then they have children, right? So the thing is that Krishna's own family was in millions. That's the Yadu dynasty. So, source of the great pleasure for the earth. And that was not a burden, that was a pleasure. When the Lord referred to them in the connection with the burden on the earth, he had in mind their imminent disappearance from the earth. All the members of the family of Lord Krishna were incarnation of different demigods, and they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. When he referred to the unbearable heaviness on the earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of the separation. Srila Jiva Goswami confirms this inference. So, what it is that this is just the past times. Before Krishna was born, all the demigods, the gods and goddesses, they all came on this earth as a part of his family to support Krishna, to assist him in his all the pastimes or whatever activities that he was supposed to do. So he brought everybody here with him, and then now in the beginning, right after his birth, first demoness he killed was Putana, right? She came to breastfeed him and he killed. So the thing is beginning from that, many of the asuras or demons were killed by both Krishna and Balaram, right? And like Pralambasur and Dhanakasur by Balaram killed so many. And some were excused also, like Kaliya snake. He didn't kill him, but he says, okay, just move away from here and go to a safe place where you do not hurt other people. So he was just given an excuse. But otherwise, he killed so many. After he killed those people, he came to Mathura and he started killing Kamsa, Charun, Keshi, all those associating with Kamsa. And then he actually killed them in what you call physical fight with them. And also, so many instances where he started, for example, I have listed that what he did, that he arranged a battle between Kauravas and Pandavas. So, Krishna and Balaram killed Asuras and Kansa, and Lord Krishna expertly arranged the great Kurukshetra battle between Kurus and the Pandavas, and thus removed to the great extent the earth's burden. Now, lot of them were actually killed. Now, if we wait for the question and answer, you may have one question about what is this Akshoni? We were reading this particular verse in which it is said, Ashtadas Akshoni. So what's Akshoni means? We already studied that, and Prabhupada is referring Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 16, verse number 34, in which they are describing this particular word. So Srila Prabhupada is so much merciful that he knew that you will have this kind of question. Akshani means mixed unit of army, which is known as a phalanx of the military strength. So there is a battalion in which they have chariots, they have horses, they have camels, they have people walking by foot, For example, you see this picture? This is the battle of Kurukshetra. So this is there. Now this is just one chariot. And see, the horses are connected to that. The person who is driving the chariot is there. Person who is going to fight is a chariot. Maybe the person who is supplying the weapons to the person who is fighting, maybe is there in the chariot. It's like just a car. You can say that our parking lot accommodates 100 cars. Is it just 100 cars? No, because every car has 5 passengers. So you have to multiply by 6, right? Car plus 5 living people. So the parking lot is not just for dead cars. They also bring people inside. And if there is a station wagon, maybe there are more than 7 or 8 people or 10 people, who knows. But it is there going to be in the parking lot. So these figures that for the mixed army are given here. For example, this kind of chariots, they have 21,870 chariots. 21,870 chariots, plus the horses, plus the charioteers, one who drives the chariot, and plus the person who is fighting, plus one who is assisting. Now, 65,610 horses in one mixed unit. So horses, they just don't live on the battlefield loose. You need someone to control him, right? So that you have to count also. So you have to multiply by 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 times sometimes. 21,870 elephants. Now, elephants also need a person who can control the elephant. Then they have palkin. Palkin is the vest where the person who is fighting is going to sit, right? A kingly person is occupying that. And then behind that, there is the person who is supplying the weapons, etc., assisting him. So you have to multiply these numbers. And 109,350 on foot, just people walking are that many. So these are the rough figures, but then again, like I said, these are just to guide you, to give you some idea about what a mixed unit is. This kind of unit, Kaurava had 11 of them. This is one army unit, this is another one, third one, 11 of them. So you multiply those numbers with 11. And when it comes to Pandavas, there are 7 Akshoni armies. Means you multiply by 7. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 against 11. And all these 18 were fighting. So all these numbers that I give you, you multiply by 18, which comes in millions and millions. It's unbelievable. Now they all got killed. The verse says that by help of Drona and Bhishma, they represent Kaurava side. They try to kill Pandavas. And on the Pandava side, there are 2 names, which is Bhima and Arjuna. So they kill Kauravas, and then mutually killing all of them, including these elephants and horses and everything. The burden was taken away from the earth. That's what they are trying to say. So, the Pandavas and thus removed to the great extent the earth's burden, but the Supreme Lord was not satisfied because of continued presence of the undefeatable Yadu dynasty, so that he could completely wind up his pastimes on the earth and go back to his abode. Using the pretense of a curse by an assembly of Brahmanas, he withdrew his entire dynasty from the surface of the earth. So, like I said, those millions of people that connected to Krishna were still there. He just took care of part of it, right? Most of people were gone. But still, when you look around, he said, my own family, they are all around, right? Yadu dynasty is still existing. So how to get rid of him? So what he says, that using the pretense of a curse by an assembly of Brahmanas, he withdrew his entire dynasty from the surface of the earth. So there is a place called Pindarika. Pindarika, name of a place where all the sages, they get together, just like a Naimisharanya, where this particular pastimes of reciting the Krishna's pastimes, Katha, and fire sacrifice were taken, where 88,000 sages were assembled. Similarly, in Pindarika, what happened, sages were assembled, and they were actually performing some kind of spiritual activity. Meanwhile, Krishna's own son, Samba, he dressed up in a sari and he put something over his abdomen and pretended that the woman is pregnant. And they took him, Samba, to the sages. Narada was there, Vishwamitra was there, this kind of Maharshi, great sages were there. But then they said that you are all learned, you all are Trikala Gnani, you know the past, you know the future, you know the present. Yeah? You are great people. Now can you tell whether this woman is carrying a boy or a girl? Now they are making fun of them. Actually one of them was dressed as a woman, right? But nobody was pregnant, nothing. But they were making joke out of it. So the sages took advantage of this particular event. They wanted to assist Krishna in his pastime. He knew Krishna wanted to get rid of his family. So there is a very famous verse here, and it says, Prasoshanti putrakama kinsvita sanjayishyati janaishyati vo manda mushalam kulanashanam. So the question was, please tell us whether her child will be a boy or a girl. And the sages replied, O fools, she will bear you an iron club that will destroy your entire dynasty. Don't worry about boy or girl. She is not going to give you any human birth. It's going to be an iron club, and it will be an instrumental to kill all of you. Whole dynasty, Yaduna, not a single person will be spared. So what happened, that's exactly what happened. Now, I have always habit of proving whatever I am reading best out of the whole Bhagavatam. And here, if you read 11th canto, it clearly says about this particular verse that hearing this narration is the greatest impetus for becoming totally detached from material world. Our business is to be detached from this material world so that we can go back to Godhead. And Srimad Bhagavatam says this particular verse, this particular pastimes that we are talking about is so important that if you listen this carefully, if you absorb it, if you can digest it, if you can understand it, then you will totally detach from this material world and you will be qualified to go back to Godhead. So it is so important. Why it is important? Because they are not trying to talk about us. We are very insignificant. They are not talking about me being detached or you being detached, you know. Krishna himself is getting detached right here. He created this world, 16,108 wives, right? And 10 children to everyone, and big Yadu dynasty, their children, all these things, you know, millions of were there. He wants to wind up. And he's thinking how to get rid of it. And he played this particular pastimes. So it is not a detachment of, related to you or me. Krishna himself is getting rid of his own things that he has created. So that's why here it says in 11th canto that hearing this narration is the greatest impetus for becoming totally detached from the material world. Once we understand even Krishna had to do this, then we won't really try to attach to this particular material world. It may start with your father, with your mother, with your wife or children, whatever it is. Ultimately, you have to be detached. That's what is preaching that here. So so far as your questions are concerned, Akshoyani, I ask you, and I gave you the answer. Another word is kshapita in this particular verse. What is a kshapit? Kshapit means abatement. Abatement means what? Reduce, decrease, diminish, lessen, retrench, cut, censor, or apply break something, you know. So when there are large numbers, there is a huge degree, there is a big amount or some kind of great intensity. If you want to reduce it, then that's known as abatement. So it also applies to the population, the number. The world's population is this much, but then 6,000 people died on 9/11, so you have to deduct that numbers, right? And only one attack killed 6,000 people in one day. So same thing is happening. Srila Prabhupada says that there are wars and other annihilating processes which takes away the, the number of people from the earth. So in this particular, chapter that is discussed. Another one that you, before you ask, I will teach you that the sages were assembled. And you heard those words, sages. What do you mean by sage? Do you know that? You should ask me, and I'll tell you. It says in Vayu Purana, Rushityesha gato dhatu shruto satye tapasyatha etat sanneyati yasmin brahmanasa rushi smrutam. Means Lord Brahma, the creator, he created a title of a Rishi. He called someone a Rishi, a sage. Yeah, he gave him a title. And he gave the reason that why I call you sage is because you are definitely combines three things in you. One, the person has a knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowledge. First you have to have knowledge of the Supreme Truth. And then you must be well read. You must have read so many scriptures. You must have heard a lot of pastimes, katha, right? And then the third thing, that you must have the virtues like austerity, truthfulness, purity, compassion, all this you must have. So all these things when you put together and if you have as a virtue, then you are qualified to become a sage. So these are the questions, kind of questions that you should be asking. Now you may ask, how many kind of sages are there? So there are sages, Rishi, Rajarshi, Maharshi, Brahmarshi, Devarshi, Saptarshi. All these are the different kind of sages. You know who is a Saptarshi? If you look in the sky, you will see 7 stars, a bunch of stars, which are 7 of them. You can clearly see them. They are all sages. Saptarshi. Celestial sages, but visible. So these are the celestial visible sages. Just like a moon you can see, sun you can see. Similarly, these 7 stars among rest of the stars, they are as Saptarshi. So there is a lot to know about this, and I think it's time for prasadam. So we'll be now leaving for the breakfast, and meanwhile we'll say Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Yeah. You want me to chant Sharira Vidyajar, or we can chant downstairs? We can chant downstairs. Thank you very much, and God bless you.